All right. Again, thank you all for joining us this evening. This is the ANC3C public meeting for July 2023. We will get started with establishing the quorum. So 1C, are you here?
Do you mean CO1?
Oh, sorry, CO1. I'm already.
Yes.
It's gonna be an evening. SMD 3C02.
Present.
3C03 is here. It is myself, Janelle Pagets. 3C04.
Present.
3C05.
Present.
3C06.
Commissioner Gordon is here. I think she might not be able to unmute.
Oh, was I on? Did you not hear me? Sorry. Present.
Cool. 3C07.
Present.
3C08.
Here as well.
Excellent. That is a quorum. We will verify that the notice was sent. I'm sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing here. The verification of notice to the listservs, to our notice list, our Twitter, and our website. We also were able to post all of the drafts of all of the resolutions, which I really appreciate my colleagues for doing. And thank you, Commissioner Stuckey, for posting that in the chat. We will move on to the approval of the agenda, including the consent calendar. Does anyone, before we go through this laundry list of consent calendar, have anything they want to add or move to a different part of the agenda or add to the agenda period? I have one item I would like to add to commission business. And Commissioner Siddiqui, as the treasurer, this is up to you if you want it before or after the treasurer's report, but I would like us to discuss and vote on approving a not to exceed expenditure of $300 to buy tablecloths and promo gear so that we're able to table at some upcoming events in the community, and also buy a new backpack for our equipment that Commissioner Siddiqui has informed me is a sad arrangement of threats. So if there's any objection to adding that to under commission business, and then Commissioner Siddiqui, if you can let me know before or after your treasurer's report.
Yeah, let's do it after the treasurer's report, so
Great.
I can tell everyone how much money we have.
Thank you. All right. So does anyone have any changes before I read through the consent calendar and all the things that are on it that would be approved with the approval of the agenda and consent? Seeing or hearing none, what's on the consent calendar for this month? We have the approval of the June 2023 meeting minutes. We have a resolution regarding sexual harassment prevention and allegation response in the government of the District of Columbia. A resolution congratulating Jude Malbone of Woodley Park and being crowned the 2023 Miss District of Columbia. A resolution to support the naming Reservation 630 in honor of Georgia A. Illard, retired superintendent of Rock Creek Park. A resolution urging the removal of Principal Esky and the immediate appointment of a new principal at Eaton Elementary School. A resolution regarding traffic calming measures on Lowell Street, 33rd Place Northwest and around Eaton Elementary School. A resolution regarding Woodley Park's participation in 2023.
Commissioner Pagets, I'm wondering if you're reading off an older list.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the some of the resolution names have been updated. For example, I think the Principal SK one was specially updated.
Okay, hold on, let me go back. Sorry about that. The resolution urging the Principal Esky one is the resolution urging Principal Esky be relinquished from his responsibilities at John Eaton Elementary School and that DC Public Schools name a replacement immediately. And then the resolution regarding traffic calming measures on 33rd Place Northwest around Eaton Element. Were those the two you were talking about?
That's what I
And
have.
Okay. And then the resolution regarding Woodley Park participation in 2023 Art All Night, which is Saturday, September 30th, 2023. Resolution regarding Cleveland Park participation in 2023 Art All Night, which is also Saturday, September 30th, 2023. Resolution regarding ABCA application for Buffalo and Bergen at 3501 Connecticut Avenue Northwest for retailers Class C tavern license. Resolution regarding HPRB application for 3424 Quebec Street Northwest. Resolution regarding HPRB application for 3542 Porter Street Northwest. A resolution regarding HPR application for 2821 Ordway Street Northwest. A resolution requesting safety improvements and traffic calming measures on the 2900 to 3100 blocks of Garfield Street Northwest, and a resolution on capital bike share locations at Cleveland Park Metro Station and Clinkle Valley Trailhead. Did I get them all? All right. Are there any changes to the agenda or consent calendar? All those in favor of adopting the agenda and consent calendar, please raise your hand or say aye. I am seeing all 8 hands and well, 7 hands. All those opposed. Well, Tammy's now the 8th hand. There's none in opposition. The agenda and the consent calendar is approved. So if you are on this call to hear in detail any of the items that were approved on the consent calendar, they are adopted by this commission in this meeting. And you can feel free to hang on or enjoy the rest of your evening. Okay, moving on with that, we have announcements starting with single member district reports. I've promised to read out on the zoo tour bus parking on Connecticut Avenue. So I'll start with that and then hopefully the rest of you could go after. So on Wednesday, July 5th, I met with a number of representatives from the Smithsonian National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute, including the executive director, Dr. Brandy Smith, deputy director Stephanie Brinley, and others from the operations team. Also in attendance were representatives from MPD, DPW, along with Christian Damia and Amy Steinberg, representing Councilmember Fruman's office. We had a very productive conversation with all parties in agreement that this just needs to work better for everyone. The past year, the zoo piloted a new program for tour bus and school bus parking on site using a reservation system. They know much needs to be improved on and are working on corrective measures, along with the zoo developing a plan and committing to socializing it with various tour bus operators and providers, DPW and MPD. Will be provided the plan as well as the peak times, including the months, weeks, days, and hours where additional enforcement is really needed. DPW also said there's conflicting signage that doesn't allow them to issue higher tickets to buses parked in loading and unloading zones, and Councilmember Fruman's office is going to work with DDOT to correct the signage. As conveyed by Stephanie Brinley, the Smithsonian's deputy director, this is a statement from the zoo. As noted in our on-site meeting, the Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute's park operations team is working on a new plan and bus parking system. Please note that while the zoo will be able to accommodate a specific number of school and tour buses, this plan will not solve the current challenges discussed. DDOT and MPUD follow-up enforcement are essential. The new plan will be in place at the beginning of the 24-25 school year, so this fall. So do any commissioners have questions on that or want to add anything else? Okay, do any other commissioners have a single member district reports this month?
I just have one announcement.
Sure.
And that is that DDOT is starting milling and repaving work on Massachusetts Avenue tomorrow through August the 4th from Garfield Street to Wisconsin Avenue. So that's going to be of interest to Massachusetts Avenue Heights, but probably to many in the western part of the ANC. It's going to involve milling and repaving and some partial lane closures, although DDOT says that at least one lane will be open in each direction while the road work is going on. There is no assurance that work will not commence until rush hour is over, but while it is the summer season, just so that everyone is on notice and if they can, avoids the area.
Great, thank you. Any other commissioners for SMD reports? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the committee reports. So safe, sustainable, and equitable transportation, you're up first.
Thank you. We had a pretty productive meeting this past week. And then that's the result of some of the resolutions that you all see on here. 3 of those have made it onto the have now been approved. So thank you all for participating. We will not have a meeting for August. I have been in touch with Christian Pinheiro about Connecticut Avenue and Porter Street Northwest safety. He will reach out to me once he hears more from the team. This is specifically about the traffic lights. They're being duplicate ones, some are covered, some aren't. The sight lines are not great, and then also some of the walking signs don't seem long enough to cross Porter and Connecticut. But yeah, no meeting in August.
Yes, thank you. There's also, we do recess in August for the entire ANC committee or the commission too. Transparency and public process.
We have nothing.
Okay, community engagements and grants. And I know you have a resolution upcoming under commission business, but anything else you want to mention here?
No, only that. We'll get to it later in the agenda. We had a meeting last week on this grant application, and we'll discuss it later in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Planning, zoning, housing, and economic development. I would say that our meeting was great. And the BEPS presentation, the Building Energy Performance Standards presentation, the materials will be posted to our website, but the recording is on our YouTube page. So thank you all for your participation in that. Residential historic preservation.
Thank you. The Residential Historic Preservation Committee met last week and reviewed 3 residential applications for continuing structures, all in the Cleveland Park Historic District. Those reviews were the subject of 3 resolutions that were on the consent calendar earlier. There is no meeting of the committee currently scheduled upcoming, but that is driven in part by the HPRB agenda, and so we would not anticipate another meeting until the fall. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Environmental justice.
No report this month.
All right, great, thank you. Okay. Up next on the agenda is a presentation from DC Justice Lab, but I'm not seeing our presenter on the call yet. Am I? Fellow commissioners, help me out here.
What's the name? Emily
Cassometus.
I don't see her.
Okay. So if it's okay with everyone, let's put a pin in that for right now until we see her jump on. And hearing, oh, there she is.
Here she is.
Timing, just in time. All right. So Emily, you've made the meeting just in time for your show. So I'm going to make you a co-host. Emily, are you there?
think Emily dropped off.
Oh dear. Well, I can still see her in the list of participants.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
clicking ask to unmute.
It's hello.
Hi there. All right,
Looks
Emily,
like- All right. Did I log on just in the nick of time?
you really did, and I appreciate it. So, are you ready to get started here?
Yep. Give me just 2 seconds.
So this is the ANC3C is not endorsing the Justice Lab, but we wanted to bring folks in to present and inform the community on what's going on with different legislation that's out there. And we know that a hot topic has been the emergency legislation on sorry, I want to get this right. The Safer, Stronger DC Amendment Act of 2023 and the executive orders. The legislation that was passed last week in council will need to be passed in some way, shape, or form permanently in the fall when they return from recess. So the idea here is, just to give space for others to, provide some information to the community on what this legislation is. So with that, Emily, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Let me figure out how to share my screen.
Excellent.
Okay. All right. Y'all can see this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you for having me here tonight. Again, my name is Emily Cassometus, and I am the Director of Government and External Affairs for DC Justice Lab. And I am hoping to help explain some of the bill tonight. So I want to clarify first off, the Safer, Stronger Amendment Act that Mayor Bowser introduced is still under consideration. That was a permanent bill. And the emergency that passed, it was called the Prioritizing Public Safety Emergency Amendment Act of 2023. And that bill had some elements of the mayor's bill and some elements of the bill that Councilmember Pinto had introduced. So we're going to talk about that a little bit here. I want to talk about the emergency bill itself. I want to talk a little bit about what's missing from the emergency bill, and then talk about next steps, and I'll leave some time for questions and answers at the end. So go ahead and write those down and queue them up as I'm going along here. All right, and I will share the slides to be distributed over the listserv, so don't worry about taking notes. All of these hyperlinks include citations to the resources where I'm getting this information. But the emergency bill had a lot of different components to it. It's not all bad, it's not all good. There are a lot of different pieces. And so I wanted to touch on some of the highlights. First, the good. There is an endangerment with a firearm offense included in this bill that has not existed before. And so in the past, when you were trying to prove that someone when you were trying to convict someone of shooting a weapon, you had to prove that they were trying to hurt somebody, or that they had the weapon illegally. And this new endangerment with a firearm offense means that there's no intent required. So this makes it so that you don't have to say, oh, this was an attempted murder. Oh, this was an assault with an intent to kill. The prosecutors don't have to prove that intent requirement anymore. And so this fills in a gap that was existing in our current criminal code. Some examples of pieces of this bill that from our perspective are bad include the expansion of pretrial detention. So this is something that was hotly debated at council, but when it comes down to it, there are decades of research showing that the longer a person is detained pre-trial, the more likely they are to commit future offenses. And we also know that detaining a person pre-trial has massive collateral consequences on their life. They can lose housing, they can lose jobs, they can lose custody of their children. There are all types of harms that come along with that, that attach to a person who has only been arrested and has not been found guilty of an offense. And so to us, the worst piece of this emergency bill is the expansion of the pretrial detention statute. One of our other really big concerns with this bill is that a lot of it doesn't really do anything at all. And so the bill has been talked about as, oh, it'll make these huge changes. Oh, it's going to make us more safe. Oh, it's definitely going to have a big impact within 90 days. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of the pieces of the bill won't have any effect at all in real life. So for instance, the GPS provisions that say that a person's ankle monitor, if they're on supervised release, can be used to tie them to any kind of new offense. This would codify in legislation, in the law, what was already a practice and already written down in memorandums of understanding between supervision agencies and MPD. So this is already taking place, and this would just set it in stone. There won't be any impact on actual, no change to actual practice. Another example here is with strangulation. While strangulation is absolutely a serious offense and is absolutely an indicator of domestic violence that leads to homicide, simply calling it a separate offense isn't going to do any prevention work there or any intervention work there. And we already have many different assault statutes that can be applied to strangulation, and people are being prosecuted under those now. And so it's nice to have a separate strangulation offense, to be able to say that's strangulation, but that we're not going to be able to prosecute people we couldn't prosecute before, and we're also not doing anything to actually intervene in strangulation practices. The big part that I wanted to focus on today with you all is what's missing from the bill. Like I said, our biggest concern with this bill really is what it doesn't do, and setting expectations for something to change where really it's not going to help. And the two big pieces that are missing from this bill are implementation of evidence-based recommendations and really narrowly tailored solutions. So it's going to take a minute to talk about this here. As far as evidence-based recommendations goes, we have a ton of reports with recommendations that have been issued in the last few years in DC by dedicated task forces and commissions that have spent years researching and developing recommendations and policy solutions for these problems. The District Task Force on Jails and Justice, for instance, issued its report in 2021, and less than 2% of its recommendations have been implemented over the last 2 years. We also know that the DC Police Reform Commission's report has more than 100 recommendations, very few of which were taken up in the Comprehensive Policing and Justice Act that passed last year, which is still not fully funded. The Criminal Code Reform Commission had hundreds of pages of recommendations as part of the revised criminal code that were eventually overturned by Congress and by the president. And the fourth big set of recommendations that we have as a city right now is that the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council for DC hired the National Institute of Criminal Justice to put together a gun violence reduction strategic plan. Sounds like exactly what we need. And still, none of these recommendations have been implemented. There are a couple of other bills that passed at the end of last year that are evidence-based. The Second Chance Amendment Act was a bill that changed the record sealing and expungement laws in DC to make it so that people who were never actually convicted of offenses, they were arrested, but charges were dropped, or they were found not guilty, so that people can seal and expunge those records more easily. That bill has not been funded, and the mayor is trying to push off implementation of that bill until 2026 at this point, which makes it so difficult for people to find housing, to apply for jobs, to get engaged in furthering their education. And the second is that our jails are in really bad shape. And the corrections oversight bill that passed last year would have really shored up an independent agency to do some of that oversight work. And that bill is also totally unfunded. So those are really concrete examples of things that we can and should be doing instead of, or in addition to, what's in this emergency bill. And I also want to just pause to talk for a moment about what we know about deterrence in general. And that is that the certainty of being caught is a way stronger predictor of deterrence than the severity of a punishment is. And so really what these reports look at, and what we should be thinking about generally if we want to prevent violence, is thinking about, okay, how can we make certain that someone is caught and caught quickly? And that is what will stick in other people's minds and make them think, maybe I shouldn't do that, rather than, looking up a statute and thinking, how much time did I get? Will I get 2 more years for this than I would have last year? Because the severity of the sentences don't have any significant impact on someone's decision making. Wanted to talk for a minute here about deterrence and about intervention in particular, and to really call your attention to a principle that we all know instinctively and through our own experience, and that is that one size doesn't fit all, right? One size fits no one. And I'm sure you can think of examples of this in your personal life. There are, for instance, children with disabilities who have special education needs, who get individualized education plans, their IEPs. When you go to the doctor, you don't necessarily get the same treatment that every other person gets for whatever your illness may be or whatever your need may be. It's a treatment that is tailored specifically to your body and to your needs and to your lifestyle. And those are the same types of interventions that we really need to prevent violence in DC. We know that when we take broad swaths and we make generalizations and say, like, all the people that this, all the people that we end up drawing too many people in, and that's how we end up with mass incarceration. That's how we end up with racist policies that are dragnetting people and aren't specifically targeted toward actual behavior. And so I wanted to talk for a moment here about 2 areas, just as examples, where we really can be very targeted and haven't been yet, but need to be. So the first here is with pretrial detention. So in this emergency bill, the pretrial detention statute was rewritten very broadly and actually lowered the standard for detention of a person pretrial to that of probable cause, which for the lawyers in the room is the same standard as you need to arrest a person, and is not a high standard, and is very potentially an unconstitutional standard for pretrial detention. Now, we can, we hear stories in the media, we hear stories about people who were out on pretrial release and committed another crime, and we hear these anecdotes. But if you look at the data here, when we look directly at the data, for last year, for instance, 93% of people who were released pretrial last year in FY22 were never arrested while they were pretrial. And 99% of those people were not arrested for a violent offense. That means that just 1%, not of all people arrested, 1% of people released pre-trial were arrested for violent crimes while they were released pre-trial. And of course, we want to bring that as close to zero as possible. We want to zero that out in any way we can. And also, it's not a very big number. And so casting wide nets is not helpful here. We really, really need to have very specific targeted interventions for people and make sure that we're capturing exactly who is most at risk and tailoring ourselves there. And as you can see, this data here goes back to FY18. So it's 5 years worth of data and has never significantly changed. You see 99, 99, 99, 98, 99% of people have been without a violent arrest on pretrial detention. And so the other thing that tells us is that the pretrial detention statute is not the problem. Back in 2018, we did not have the level of homicides that we have now. And so the pretrial detention statute is not the issue. Something else has changed. The law has been the same this whole time, and we really need to focus on what else has changed. And those are the conditions that we're living in. So as the second example here on the right-hand side of really targeted interventions, the Gun Violence Reduction Strategic Plan that was produced for DC gives a very, very clear prescription of how we should be, based on research, based on evidence, targeting the known about 500 people in DC who are most likely to be victims of gun violence and most likely to be perpetrators of gun violence, because those circles are very much overlapping. They are not different populations. And there are detailed steps with one-on-one individually tailored programming here that should be implemented that aren't being implemented, that aren't touched by this emergency bill, and are really where we need to be focusing our time. Finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about the fiscal costs here. We all know what the human costs are in potential and in lives, and how devastating that has been. But money is a piece of this too. And one reason that the emergency bills are tailored the way they are every summer when they come up is because emergency bills in DC are not supposed to have any kind of fiscal impact. And so you can't say as an emergency bill, oh, I want to invest X dollars in more dollars in the Marion Barry Summer Employment Program. You can't say, oh, I want to invest X more dollars in housing. You can't do that through emergency legislation. And by some kind of legal fiction in DC, the council and the mayor and the budget office have decided that policies passed through emergency legislation that absolutely result in more incarceration don't carry a fiscal impact statement. And we know that that's just not real, right? It costs $241 a day to incarcerate an adult in DC. It costs at least $600 a day, likely much more, to detain a child in DYRS in DC. And so we know that these policies are having a fiscal impact. And there are other ways that we could be spending that money. So there are more than 50 programs across the United States right now that have a universal basic income, guaranteed income. There are different terms to describe these policies. But one of the recommendations of the Gun Violence Reduction Strategic Plan was that we start UBI here, and that we take 200 Black families who are living in Ward 7 or 8, who have children under 10 years old, who are making less than $50,000 a year, and provide a monthly stipend of $750. And that would cost about $1.8 million for all 200 families for the year, which is less than the cost of locking up 10 more kids. And everybody knows that this prevention is really where it's at. We can react, we can be reactive, we can incapacitate people in the short term, but this prevention is where we need to see our money invested and where we really need to be focusing our time and resources. Finally here, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we see as the potential next steps. And this is going to require all of our branches of government working together. So as far as the executive goes, there was an executive order that was issued the same day as Mayor Bowser released her Safer Stronger Amendment Act. And that order required a bunch of agencies to submit plans to the city administrator about how to review and improve violence reduction programs. No one has seen those. No one has made any changes that we're aware of based on those plans. And so the first thing we want to see are the plans themselves, and then measures of how we're going to figure out how they work. Another thing we want to see from the executive is a focus on prevention. And that means sharing data on programs and improving the quality of the programs, both what's in the executive order and beyond. We also want to see a focus on deterrence, like I said. So this means targeting interventions, as we discussed, to individuals. It means looking at police closure rates and making sure that people are being caught. It also includes barriers to prosecution and getting convictions. There are, if you've been following the news lately, there was just an expose in the city paper about police misconduct and 17 MPD officers whose cases are all being thrown out now because they're under investigation. The Department of Forensic Sciences is uncertified, and we have to toss our DNA analysis and gun analysis and other things to other jurisdictions and ask for help. And some of those cases are being thrown out as well. So there is a lot we can do here to actually work on deterrence and to really target the apprehension of people who are committing offenses. And then the last thing we really want to see the executive do here is restore funding for victim services. This year's austerity budget cut millions of dollars to victim services. And we know that victims, again, and people who are committing gun violence are not different populations. They are overlapping, massively overlapping populations who have many of the same needs. And our victim services agencies are totally underwater and really need to be able to serve people like with quality and full service. As far as the legislature goes, the emergency bill that just got passed will expire on October 9th. And so there are investigations to be done. What parts of the bill were really implemented? What impact did they have? We, as a city, often pass legislation without assessing the impact of those bills, and without understanding how they help or hurt or do nothing in the future. And we have an opportunity here with this 90-day emergency window to actually dig in and figure it out. Because if this bill doesn't do much or potentially makes things worse in the ways that we're predicting, then we need very, very different evidence-based temporary and permanent bills when the council comes back into session in the fall. The other thing that we need to be considering as a city is what to do about our revised criminal code and what we could potentially do to ensure that we would have Joe Biden's veto to pass another revised criminal code, because right now the piecemeal updates to very narrow sections is really just making our code messier instead of bringing clarity and making offenses prosecutable in the way that we want them to be. The final branch, our third branch of government, the judiciary, here is often left out because they are appointed by the President of the United States and confirmed by the Senate and paid for by Congress. But we do need work there too. We need to work to fill judicial vacancies. There are so many seats open on the court right now. There's a massive backlog, and we really need the Senate to start confirming more judges so that they can work through these cases in a timely manner. And we also, the court stopped bringing people back to the Department of Corrections for hearings during COVID, and this policy should be reversed. Prior to COVID, people who had hearings for IRA petitions, for compassionate release, for appeals in their cases were brought back to the Department of Corrections, and often were there for months to years while their petitions were being considered, and had that time to actually participate in programming and other things before many of them were released. And right now, people are being released straight from the Bureau of Prisons again. And that's a problem for us because the Bureau of Prisons doesn't care about these residents. They have no special prioritization. They have no contact to the people who are providing reentry services here. They are not giving people services, whether that be employment or education or healthcare or mental health care. And so we really need to be bringing people home to DC before they are released. And that is something that judges can't control. I have a contact sheet here as well. I will, like I said, share these slides, but I'm happy to answer any questions that people have now. And I'll also drop the link in the chat to sign up for our registration page if you want to get on DC Justice Lab's mailing list and learn more information about all of this.
Great, thank you, Emily. Your last point about the releasing directly from the Bureau of Prisons is really, I did not know that, and that's ridiculous that we're even doing that, but thank you for sharing all of this helpful information. I'm going to open it up to commissioners first for Q&A and then the community. So any commissioners have questions right now?
I don't have a question, but I see that two of my constituents have questions, and I'm excited to hear what their questions are.
Before we will get to you, Commissioner Nash, go ahead.
Certainly. Well, first of all, thanks very much for your presentation. It's a useful perspective, and it's certainly important to consider the ramifications of major legal and policy changes. And also thanks for highlighting the fact that we have judges to be confirmed and a crime lab that needs to be reformed so that charges are made and charges stick. You know, and your point that the certainty of being caught is a strong deterrent, but it's obviously not a deterrent when too many violent offenders or those accused of violent crimes are released pre-trial to offend again, and where arrest rates are still dismally low. I mean, you know, we're mindful in this ANC of the fact that there are other parts of the city that are certainly experiencing increased levels of crime, especially violent crime. But our constituents are also uneasy. And, you know, whether it's a carjacking near one of the elementary schools and playgrounds in this ANC, or, you know, what seems to be organized theft from our local businesses without impunity, you know, people want something to be done. And while crimes of violence are the most important, we've seen what happens also in other parts of the country where even the largest retail chains are pulling out because they feel the crime situation is getting out of control. So, you know, this perspective is important, but I hope that we also hear before the 90-day period expires from, you know, the council, from Councilmember Fruman or Councilmember Pinto in their offices, so that, you know, our constituents, our neighbors, you know, can have other points of view. But again, thank you for bringing yours to our attention.
I will just take a moment to respond to say that you're right, that we do want solutions. And what I was hoping to explain with this presentation is that I'm not sure that this emergency bill is a solution to anyone's problems, to those that are up in Ward 3 or those that are in 7 and 8. And we do want everyone to be safe. We want everyone to feel safe, and that there are policies that can help us move that direction. And I don't think this bill is going to get us there.
Thank you. Commissioner Geis.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, no, I I share the commissioner's concern as well, and I agree, all of our constituents are looking to see actions from us. Oh, it's telling me it's gonna lower my hand, thank you. Yeah, all of our constituents are looking to see actions from, the council all around the district to, to tackle the ongoing needs that we're seeing. During your presentation, was the stat you quoted that the cost of pretrial detention of 10 minors would pay for, a UBI-like system for 200 families?
Yes.
I feel like that's the kind of solution that we should be, looking to. That's the kind of thing where, we're not really counting how many people we're putting in pretrial detention. If anything, bills like this, we're saying we can afford to do more. I think it'd be very interesting if we started counting how many families we can afford to be supporting in that way. And I'd be very curious to see, what, happens with petty and violent crime in response if we go through, with looking and doing those kinds of solutions.
Babe.
Great, thank you. All right, Alexander Jurgen.
Hi, thank you so much for this presentation. It was really helpful and interesting. I think it's important that we do have to be more evidence-based. And surprise, surprise, I mean, often bills are passed with much fanfare, but are not really effective. I guess my question is, if you found that statistically that, that it was interesting to know that it's the certainty of getting caught, not the severity of the punishment, that makes you more likely to not commit a crime. In addition to, I think, a lot of the interesting ideas you proposed, do you also think that kind of expanding MPD, bringing it back to a better number than it is now, helping restore police morale, and then also looking into kind of having more sort of beat patrols and street patrols that I don't see much of in DC, would that also help? Because then, potential offenders would kind of know that the police are out there. It would help clear backlogs and also kind of say, hey, you're more likely to get caught.
Well, I want to start by saying that it's not, it's not just my opinion, that the certainty of arrest is more of a deterrent than the severity of the punishment. That's decades of research that the Department of Justice here and everyone agrees upon. And so, yes, I do think that things that lead toward more certainty of apprehension are more likely to deter crime. There is a lot of conflicting evidence about what that means with policing. The overarching research goes toward, as I was explaining, that the more targeted the interventions are, the more specific the policing is. Not these big dragnets, not stop and frisk, not general lockdown in neighborhood, but really focusing on the people who we know are most at risk is the way to go there. And hopefully we'll see that with the announcement of the new police chief today. Hopefully we'll see some of that from MPD in the future.
But just a quick follow-up. So would that then require more spending on police? Because my understanding is police are rather stretched thin, right? I agree with you that we need to be more targeted, but would you think that would be a kind of sort of concrete next action would be to then increase police funding so this can be more targeted?
I don't, and here's why. First of all, as if you all follow DC Crime Facts on Twitter, there has been a lot of research done into the allocation of DC's police in particular in the last couple of weeks, and it shows that most of the police are up with y'all in Ward 3 and Ward 2 and are not in the places where the most violent crime is happening. And so reallocation of current policing resources can happen. The other thing is that police do a lot, and they should not be asked to do so much. And this is something that everyone agrees on. Police don't want to be social workers. Social workers don't want police to be social workers. No one wants police doing all of these things. And so if we can really limit police to intervening when there are when violence is happening and to trying to prevent that from happening in the first place, then we can have other people. We can have emergency responders, we can have crisis interveners, we can have all kinds of other people providing other services, and that will free up the police to do the thing that they are supposed to be doing, rather than doing everything that we ask them to do.
Great, thank you. Do one last question, Robin Helsbrand.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Thanks for this presentation. It was really interesting. Just a quick comment, I would say, and then a question. I'm a supporter of universal basic income too, but my concern is that, and that seems like a great kind of long-term or medium-term solution, but there is an increase in violent crime that no one can deny. Other cities, violent crime is going down, and in DC, it's increasing. And so I think we need more immediate solutions. As far as the expansion of pretrial detention, and I'd love to understand, you said that increases crime, that evidence shows. So I'd love your thoughts, if you can argue the other side, just for me to understand, what would the other side say? Clearly, they didn't propose this in order to increase crime. So what is the theory of expanding pretrial detention on the other side? And I'd also argue, or I also ask, from what I understand, it doesn't mandate a judge to detain anyone. It gives the judge some leeway to determine how bad the crime was, whether they should be released. And that strikes me as the not one solution, not one size fits all. That strikes me as a tailored approach, case by case, which is what you were saying should be done. So I'd love your response to that. I'd also love, if there's time, to understand your thoughts about hotspot policing, which the new police chief says she's going to do. But understand, if I only have time for one question, I'd focus on the pretrial detention.
Yeah, so to address the first part of what you said, yes, UBI will make, first of all, UBI will make, you get monthly payments, right? So that starts helping now. It's not like baby bonds, it starts helping in 18 years when someone gets their trust. UBI does start helping now. At the same time, there are also many other violence interruption and violence prevention efforts that need to happen. I think that the gun violence reduction strategic plan is an excellent resource. It lays everything out. It was commissioned by the city itself, and it is simply not being implemented. And that's such a waste of resources. It's a waste of the work that the city's doing, and it's a waste of life here. As far as pretrial detention goes, the other side of the argument is that, well, if someone's in jail, then they're definitely not out in the community committing crime, right? And so whether we hold them for 3 days, or whether we hold them for 5 days, or whether we hold them, sometimes it takes 3 years to get a trial here in DC, and that's not uncommon. And we have to weigh between, okay, how many of the people who are coming in, who are being arrested, who are being detained, how many of those people are guilty? How many of those people aren't guilty of these specific offenses in the US legal system that we have going? What other ways do we have of preventing violence? When we have, when we're talking about kids in the education system, I was a teacher before I was a lawyer. And when we're talking about kids get least restrictive environments, right? And so if you have a disability, if you have a behavioral issue, we're not automatically saying, oh, you have to have a one-on-one aid and you have to go to a special school or be in a special classroom or do these things, right? There are tiers of supports that we give to children to make sure that they can be incorporated into the classroom, into society in the best, in the least restrictive environment possible. And that same thing here works. We know it works because 99% of people who are released per trial in DC are not convicted of violent crimes. and 93% aren't convicted of any crimes at all while they're released. So we know that those supports are working. When people are released and they have supervision, when they have GPS, that works for the vast majority of people. And so there is a 1% of those people who are being released pre-trial who are not, who are being arrested for violent crimes, and we need to target interventions specifically to them rather than changing the entire standard for pretrial detention. Because what we're doing now is saying that everyone should be detained as a baseline, and the judges can say, oh no, that doesn't apply here, rather than before where the baseline was neutral and judges got to make that decision from a neutral place.
Thank you. And thank you all for your questions and your answers. It's been great information. Again, this will all be on our YouTube channel, and we'll post your deck to our website too, so people can access it there. Great.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, the next item on our agenda is the community forum, where members of the public are invited to ask questions and raise concerns about issues that are not otherwise on this agenda. We ask that you limit your time to about 1 minute, and that it is in the form of a question. And I know this is usually the section where we also hear from our Main Streets program and our government agencies who are in the room. So if any of you have anything you want to say, announcements, raise your hand. Cassandra, you're first.
Thank you, Janelle. Get rid of my hand. Well, Art All Night. Just wanted to let everybody know. Can you hear me? I might hear things.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to let everyone know that the votes were tallied and the theme for Cleveland Park will be Small Village, Big Heart. We will need volunteers for this event, people to help with the info table, just some minor setting up. If anyone knows how to knit and would like to help with their knitting skills, I have a job just for you. We are full. We have all the entertainer spots filled, but we do have just a couple of spaces left for vendors. If anyone is interested in being a pop-up vendor, there are 1 or 2 tables available at the library if you are an artist and you would just like to display some of your artwork. Other ways to get involved in Cleveland Park Main Street are litter cleanups for Saturday of the month, 8:30 a.m., third Saturday of the month, 3:30 p.m. Both of them meet at the corner of Ordway and, Porter and Connecticut outside GW Urgent Care. And I'm hoping Swale or Janelle could drop my email in the chat. So if anyone has questions about Art All Night, wants to volunteer or wants to get involved, the window is shrinking for involvement. All right. And it's September 30th, 5 to 10 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley Mercer.
Good evening, everyone. I'm with the council member's office. I'm constituent services, Councilmember Furman. I'll put in the chat a way to reach us if you have any questions or concerns that need assistance. And also on how to stay up to date with things that are going on in the office, to sign up with our newsletter. Just a couple of announcements. We have our 3rd workday in the ward, July 26th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Dolan in Cleveland Park. Feel free to stop by and chat with us. MPD will also be hosting National Night Out festivities in each of our 7 districts. They will be on Ward 3 on August 1st from 5 to 8 p.m. at Guy Mason Recreation Center, located at 3600 Calvert Street Northwest. Also, update DPW yard waste collection. This is very important. There have been changes to the way that they pick up their yard waste. Instead of yard waste being put into your trash bin, you must now put it in a paper bag. It has to be in paper bags, and you must also call 311 to schedule a pickup whenever you need to have that yard waste collected. One more thing, the Wilson Aquatic Center was intermittently closed last week due to unsafe humidity inside the building. To improve communication to residents about pool closures, DPR encourages residents to sign up to receive live updates about facility operating statuses, programs, and events. To sign up for DPR alerts, please text DCD-PR to 888-777. I'll also put that in a chat. If anyone has any questions or concerns, feel free to ask or reach out.
Great, thank you. For the yard waste, are the bags being provided by anybody, or they're just like pick your own brand of paper bag?
Yeah, you have to buy your own paper bags.
Okay, cool. And then the other thing, the council member, I'm hoping, is participating in the National Building Museum's Look Here Ward Days.
I believe he is, but I will double check. It's on, they put it on our calendar, so I believe he is participating, but I will double check and follow up with you.
Cool, and that would be on August 3rd. At
Yes.
7 p.m. and it's free admission into their summer block party, and they have great events for the kids. So hopefully y'all can include it in the newsletter if he's going.
Yes, will do.
Thank you. Bob Ward, I'm gonna let Matthew Barclay from EOM go, and then you. So Matthew, thank you. Ashley, by the way.
No problem. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Barclay, Mayor, Ward 3 Liaison for the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services. You can get, Swale will drop my contact information in the chat.
I just opened up chat to everyone. You should do it yourself because you have very long messages.
I'm sorry. Maybe one day I'll just do a newsletter or something. Likely will probably happen because it is what it is. Okay. Mayor Bowser announced today our new chief of police, Pamela A. Smith. You can read her news or her the press release and an article about her in the Washington Post. I'll drop it in the chat. We are currently hiring in DC government, and you can go to mota.dc.gov/jobs. And I'll also drop a progress report for the Pathways to the Middle Class program that we are pushing. Also, it's MLS All-Star event week, and there will be some events at the Sandlot Anacostia, excuse me. July 18th, 4 to 8, there'll be drills, skills, and trivia. And July 19th, 4 to 8, Atlas Brew will have a pregame tailgate. I encourage you to go watch the game if you can find tickets. Also, the Safer Stronger DC emergency legislation vote happened, and Mayor Bowser has a statement thanking Councilmember Pinto and Council for voting in the affirmative and helping the city become safer. Got Guns, we are also a part of that push. We are there. You can call 202-727-9099 or text 50411 if you know of anybody who has an illegal gun or a hidden gun, or maybe there's an abandoned vehicle. Please let me know about the abandoned vehicle, get that taken care of. But if there's a gun in it, call MPD. And also you can call the number I just said, or the text, the number I just said. There's a $2,500 for a tip leading to an arrest, and $10,000 for a tip leading to an arrest and conviction. The Mayor's Office of Clean City is going to do an electronic drop-off, a electronics drop-off. So any computer waste that you have, you can come Saturday, July 22nd at 10 a.m. at the North Michigan Park Recreation Center and drop off all of your materials. Thank you all. Appreciate you.
Great. Thank you. All right, Bob Ward.
Thank you. I just have a few questions that I've been asked of people. And so I just want to, maybe this collective group has some answers. So first start with some businesses. Saw the liquor license for Buffalo Bourbon. Is there any estimate on when that might be opening? And then I hear Captain Cookie's opening soon, but don't know when. So that's two questions on businesses. I'll pause. Anyone know?
I assume you'd like me to answer, Rob?
You know.
Captain Cookie is having just a hiccup with one of the licenses. I'm trying to help them with that. And as for Buffalo and Bargain, they weren't supposed to be opening until sometime early next year. They're going to do some renovations.
Yeah, and Janelle Williams with the Department of Buildings is actually on the line with her hand up, who can probably answer the question about Captain Cookie and the Milkman and a certificate of occupancy, I believe is an inspection. Don't mean to put you on the spot, Janelle, but you offered.
I did, Janelle. I actually got your email, Cassandra. I am digging in on that. I'm waiting for a response because there is a conflict between the occupancy load, which is what the holdup is for Captain Cookie. So they are in process. We need some clarification before we fully complete their certificate of occupancy. I'm not sure about the other restaurant you said, because this is my first time hearing it. So I have to look and see if they're tied up in some CO process or if they're just, okay, Sadiq said
That
he
was
didn't
super
say.
early on. And that's the one that we just voted to support their ABCA application.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
The other question I had, two other questions. So people are asking what the status of the DDOT bike lane project is, like when's the next sort of inflection point? If people are wanting to weigh in on that to help speed it up, whatever, who do they contact? I know, I imagine this is in DDOT's hands right now, but does anyone have any information on like what the next step is?
Yes.
Siddiqui,
Do you want me
yeah,
to answer?
it's fun. Yeah, that group.
Yes, it is in DDOT's hands. DDOT is supposed to come back with plans after they took input on the block by block status. I would say that right now that's all we're waiting for. If you would like to be involved with the project, please email me. I'm happy to sort of keep you on an update list. I'll get a list together. Just to remind everyone, our ANC has overwhelmingly supported this project, and so our basic goal right now is to act on our resolutions and ask DDOT to move as soon as possible. That's the direction that we're going and what we voted on. If anyone wants more info, would like to be on a list of updates, please just email me. I'll let you know when I know. And there are also different groups, advocacy groups as well, that you're more than welcome to join if you want to hear more updates about it.
Thanks. And then the last question was just on the service lane, former service lane. See, the barriers have been moving around. And there's, I think, questions from the community about what's the next step, what's happening there, and when will we be able to use the space for fun?
Yeah. I feel like some folks on this call have pieces of this answer, but the short version that we've heard from DOT is that it's going to take a couple of months to complete their ADA compliance for the pedestrian zone, so that those sort of very trippable curb, parking, or like what are they? Speed bumps.
Speed bumps.
Put in, sorry, the speed bumps can get addressed. They just need to get like the construction crew back out here to do that. And so I think they have to do like the compliance first and get the construction. So it just, of course, takes some time. We've all been pushing, and Christian at DOT is probably annoyed because we've all been pushing him for faster on that. Since, it, for all practical purposes, feels complete, and yet the barriers are still there. So we have asked, can the barriers be removed? Can we put up, just like signs around the speed bumps so people don't trip on them, like, things like that, because it's not like they're all that effective right now. And, people are already walking on the other side anyway. But, obviously,
Very true.
yeah, but don't want to, open up the city to like lawsuits on that. So we're just, trying to work as best as we can with them. But the short answer from DOT is, approximately 3-4 months is what they're telling us.
Okay, thanks for your advocacy on that.
Sure.
The only thing I'll add is just to be clear that it's not just the speed bumps that are holding this up. There's like other stuff that DDOT still needs to do over there that they're still working on. So.
Yeah, but the decision is made that it will be open to pedestrians and close pedestrians and those who walk and roll, and close to cars for the foreseeable future. To be clear.
Right.
All right. Anyone else from the community? Oh, and Commissioner Siddiqui, you reminded me that we did get the letter from DDOT regarding the Woodley Park circulator that's funded through next year. So well done, everyone, on keeping that circulator going. So that's positive. All right. Any other community questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll move on to commission business. And first up on this portion, we have a consideration of resolution regarding a grant application by St. Columbia and Ward 3 Interfaith Planning Team for Undesign the Redline exhibit. So Commissioner Kripke, if you want to take it away.
I'd be glad to. Thank you, everyone. So just to provide a tiny bit of context here, our ANC has an annual budget, and we make the decision to allocate a portion of that budget towards community-oriented grants. You can look on the website to see sort of what qualifies, but generally projects that are sort of non-recurring, don't pay salaries, and have a community benefit are meant to qualify for grants and applied for by nonprofits or community-based organizations. So you may recall that we have provided one grant already this term for the Endangered Species Art Project, which hopefully will be installed sometime in the next few months. And we have another application before us to fund a project that's being organized by some local congregations to do a pop-up exhibition and an interactive process to talk about racial and economic exclusion in our communities. And I think it's a really interesting and potentially inspiring project meant to do some self-reflection for our communities, and also learning and also engaging residents about their own experiences. So I think it's really cool. And I've written a resolution to support the grant application, but wanted to bring it up here. And we have one of the organizers of the project with us, Barbara Kraft. So what I'd like to do is hand it over. Barbara, you're invited to make some comments, give a very brief overview of the project and of the grant, and then we can have some discussion about it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, everybody. I'm actually here with Patty Jensen from St. Columba's Episcopal Church, who is also with me on the planning team for this project. So we have with us our PowerPoint presentation. If you want to show that to the group, that might take a little longer, but it's really up to you. Or we could talk from the resolution, or I could just give you kind of a summary, Commissioner Kripke. That sounds like that's what might be best at this point. We could also share the PowerPoint with you to share with the commissioners if you wanted. But anyway, so
Commissioner Kripke, if I can make a suggestion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Since we've already had stuff presented at our at the committee meeting, and we have that video available, I'll put that video in the chat. I suggest we keep it to a short summary, if that's okay. And then if people want more detail, we can ask you questions. But I personally do not like stuff being presented twice. And not that I don't want to hear about it again, because I've listened to the recording, but mostly that keeps us moving efficiently.
Totally hear you. Okay, let me just introduce myself really quickly to everyone. My name is Barbara Kraft. I live on Upton Street, right on the border between ANC3C and ANC3F. I'm a member of Temple Sinai. I'm also on the planning team led by St. Columba's Episcopal Church. Planning team is looking to bring this exhibit, Undesign the Redline, to Upper Northwest Ward 3. We're looking now probably at installing this exhibit at some point in April of 2024. Undesign the Redline is a traveling exhibit that tells the story of how federal, state, and local policies created the practice of redlining. The exhibit then focuses on exploring the impacts of those policies on how communities developed and how racial inequities are baked into particular neighborhoods as a result. So we're seeking a grant from ANC3C and ANC3F and some of the other ANCs in Ward 3 to help us pay for that. We'd like to stand up a community advisory group in the fall, later this summer or in the fall, that will essentially be the face of the exhibit. And if the commissioners or our community have ideas about who would be good members of that community advisory group, we would love to hear them. What's really cool about this is the way it builds on the exhibit to support storytelling, community building, and mobilization. beyond actually explaining Redline, which most of us have learned something about. Each time it's displayed, the exhibit is created anew for the particular community where it's happening. So it's our neighborhood and our stories. It was created, the exhibit, Undesign the Redline, was created by a firm in New York, a social design firm called Designing the We. And I think that link to that company is in the website. I'm sorry, in the resolution. I do want to be clear that this is a secular exhibit. This is actually the first time that Undesign the Redline has ever been put together by a group of houses of worship, faith congregations. We expect diverse funders, and we're actually getting diverse funders from businesses, other nonprofit organizations, people involved in real estate, individuals, other congregations. So yeah, while it's created by this group of faith congregations, financial support and input is coming from a broad spectrum of organizations in our community. Another version of this exhibit, it's been all over the country, Winston-Salem, Cleveland, New York, LA, many other cities. An earlier version appeared in 2017 in downtown DC. And one of the reasons we got interested after seeing it in Howard County recently is that we feel that our consciousnesses kind of have been raised, our neighborhood's consciousness have been raised since 2017, the murder of George Floyd and the murders of other people of color. And we feel that putting in this exhibit now, installing this exhibit now, will kind of help us build on that shift, that renewal and shift in our consciousness. This exhibit is going to be a great resource for ANC3C residents and others in Ward 3. So it's going to support Designing the We, and our team are going to support research into the stories of our neighborhood, development in our neighborhoods, led by experts in history and storytelling. So one particular aspect that's important today, we feel, is that it's designed to provide safe spaces for people in our communities to have discussions around issues of race and equity. It will be up in a location somewhere in Ward 3. We're looking at libraries mainly, community centers, possibly places like Chevy Chase Pavilion, UDC. We haven't really decided, we haven't zeroed in yet on narrowed it down too much yet. But it's going to be at a location that's accessible, transit, easily accessible by public transit, easily accessible for families, members of the public to stop by, to arrange uses for, like book groups, lectures, reflections by meetings, perhaps even ANC committee meetings or ANC meetings. It's going to be an opportunity for provide a venue for discussion. I think, let me see what else I wanted to mention. Oh, I know some new information that we've gotten since we last spoke with you at Commissioner Kripke at the Grants Committee meeting. We've gotten a little more specific information about what the ANC grant money will be used for. And that is specifically for the community outreach activities, the collection of the stories, putting the stories into a form that we can present as part of this exhibit, and then also for the actual physical construction of the exhibit itself, wherever we may put it. So if it were at the Cleveland Park Library, for example, or Tenley Library, the monies that we are raising in our initial fundraising that I described to you earlier will be used chiefly for those two purposes. Our goal is to raise the amount we need in order for St. Columba's to sign a contract with the firm Designing the We by mid-August. We're looking at, we need $42,500 for that to get us to that point in our fundraising cycle. We're getting there. We're almost there, and from thereafter, we're going, any additional monies after the 42.5 will be used for, hopefully, to either extend the period of time at which the exhibit is up, or potentially to put it up in a second location. So that's where we are right now. As I said, we would be very interested in your input into who might be good members of the community advisory group. We've had good discussions with the Office of the ANCs over the last couple of weeks that suggest that they too are enthusiastic about this project and think it's an appropriate project for ANC grants. And I think that's about all I have tonight that I can put out there as a summary. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. And I should acknowledge too, Bill Jensen, in addition to Patty, Bill and Patty Jensen are also on our planning team. And we've been working together with another group of people, St. Columba's, Chevy Chase Presbyterian, Temple Micah, Adas Israel, Temple Sinai. We've been working together since the fall of 2022 in putting this together.
Great, that's awesome. And thank you so much for doing this and for this summary. And I'm really looking forward to the exhibit. Commissioner Kripke, if you want to read the resolves and then move your resolution, and then we'll get a second and we can move to discussion. That'd be great.
So I should read the results here.
Yes, just the results, because I think Barbara did an awesome job covering the whereases.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So reading off the draft I have, be it resolved, that ANC3C approves a grant request for $5,000 provided St. Columba's agrees to comply with all the ANC guidelines with respect to the expenditure of funds, maintenance of receipts, and accounting procedures. Be it further resolved that ANC3C authorizes the chair and the treasurer to represent the commission on this matter. So pretty simple. So then I move.
Oh,
Second.
sorry,
go
I
ahead.
thought it was already moved.
I move to call the question. I think that's what I do here.
You're
No.
moving the resolution, and then is there a second to the to moving on to discussion of resolution?
Discussion. Okay.
Commissioner Siddiqui already seconded.
Okay, so Commissioner Siddiqui seconded. Any commissioners have any questions, comments, discussion on this?
Here for it.
I just want to thank you for doing this. This is such a nice community effort and really appreciative. I'm personally very appreciative of you all doing this. This is so important. I'm also very appreciative of you all for bringing this grant to us, because as treasurer, I can tell you we have funds that the community should be using. So bring your ideas, bring your grants, and we're so happy that you're bringing your idea for this. And I also especially want to thank Commissioner Kripke for not only handling this all through the meeting, but also writing the resolution and stuff. I guess my question really is I just have a question, I guess, for Commissioner Kripke and maybe Commissioner Pagets and Commissioner Prinzo, since they know about the rules somewhat better than I do. Should we add a statement of what you just described, what Ms. Craft just described about how the funds are going to be used? So I know there's like a general statement in there that says just complies with ANC laws. Do you all think comply with all ANC guidelines? Do you all think that's enough, or should we add specifically where they're going to use the money?
Based on our communications this week, I added a little clause that's more or less to the effect of what Barbara said. I'm happy to edit it more, but I think we did specify that it would be for the production of the exhibit, the construction and outreach. And I think that implies, Barbara, tell me if I'm not wrong, if I'm not right, that it would be a separate, in terms of the budget allocation, it would not be contributing to the contract that you're planning to make with the production company.
I'm not sure.
That's great. Sorry, Commissioner Kripke, that I missed that. My apologies.
Okay. When you say not contributing, I'm not sure what you mean.
I think that the clarification is that St. Columba's and the group will be expending the funds directly rather than handing it into the contract. Or am I wrong about that?
Patty and Bill, do you, I'm
Yeah.
not sure I understand.
Patty's saying yes.
Yeah, but Patty and
My-
Bill had the discussions with the OANC, and maybe they can answer this a little more clearly.
The two, the funds would be towards payment of the contract. St. Columbus is the signatory on the contract with Designing the We. And the two categories that Barbara mentioned are based on where we know funds would be specifically spent for ANC3C in light of our discussions with the OANC.
Okay.
And we have had another meeting with the contractor to ensure that we do that in a way that meets the grant requirements of the OANC. And so until, for example, we know where the exhibit's being located, we can't speak to whether ANC3C, sorry.
ANC3C.
Yeah, I live in Bethesda, so I'm getting all this ONC stuff. But until we know, for example, the location of the exhibit, we don't know if a portion of the grant you give us would be spent on the creation of the exhibit materials. However, we do know that there would be consulting fees related to discerning the history, writing that up, those kinds of things.
Or if I might say it in a slightly different way, the community outreach that's going to generate the material and stories that's going to be part of this exhibit is going to come from ANC3C and come from the other ANCs probably that are either thinking about giving us grants or have decided to give us grants tentatively. So the material is going to come from the research that we do and that Designing the We does in Woodley Park, in Cleveland Park. That's the whole reason we're doing this.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
Does that help to answer the question?
Yeah.
No, it makes perfect sense to me. I'm okay now.
Okay.
Commissioner Prinzo, did you have anything else to add, or?
No, I was that was fine. I was gonna clarify that it was already in the resolution already.
Okay, great. Any other commissioners? Any other community members? All right. Without objection, I move to take a vote on approving this grant for $5,000 for Undesigning the Redline project. St. Columbia's Episcopal Church. All those in favor of supporting this grant application, raise your hand or say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 commissioners are in favor. 0 would be in opposition and 0 abstaining. Then the grant is approved. 8-0. So thank you very much, and we really look forward to continuing to participate and helping promote this project too. And thank you
so much.
Let us know however else we can be of help.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, commissioners. We really do appreciate it. And we so look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item under commission business is the treasurer's report. Commissioner Siddiqui, the floor is yours.
So the Office of ANC had their act together. I would be presenting a quarterly financial report at this meeting. Unfortunately, they have discontinued the previous spreadsheet they were using for quarterly financial reports and have not made a new system available. Hence, there's no quarterly financial report here. As soon as I hear from them when we have a new system, I will be submitting a new quarterly financial report. Finances haven't changed pretty much from last time I gave a report. We actually haven't had that many more expenses other than the previous grant, which we haven't signed yet because we still haven't gotten approval from ANC yet to to be able to sign it. So yeah, I'm happy to give more updates if we want, but Commissioner Pagets, all that to say is I'm happy to tee it back to you that we definitely have $300 in our account, and definitely in our budget that we can swing that if that's what you wanted. I would recommend us not spending money on a backpack. I have tons of old backpacks that I can donate to the ANC, that if we do need that at some point.
All right. Thank you. Did we need to approve any of this spending for our website stuff this month?
No, he never got back to us.
Okay.
Unless
Yeah,
he
no, I
answered you.
replied to him and he didn't respond on, our payments were all up to date. I don't know where that email came from. I CC'd you both on that email, right?
Yeah, yes, he did.
All right. I just wanted to double check in case I missed something. Bob Ward, do you have a question on the treasurer's report?
I do.
Okay.
Roughly, what's the balance?
Give me You said roughly, right? It's about around $90,000 total with our savings and our checking account.
Ooh.
Not helping anyone in the bank.
Nope.
No. All right, so that's concluding the treasurer's report then. Thank you for that. So my addition to the agenda was to make a motion to approve $300 to spend on tablecloth, maybe some flyers, some gear so that we're able to have materials to go and table at upcoming events. We would of course be purchasing all of this using union print shops and safe, sustainable materials in any kind of swag that we procure and do so locally. So I'm proposing a not to exceed amount of $300 for this particular installment of this effort. So I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? I'm not seeing any. With that, without opposition, let's move to a vote to approve $300 not to exceed for promo materials. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There will be none in opposition and none abstaining. That is approved. $300 not to exceed.
Can I give an update on our budget? So our checking account has $81,900 and our savings account has $29,200. So in fact, we have over $110,000 in our bank. So 90,000 was an underestimate.
But we do now have $10,000 in outstanding.
We have to give out. Yes, yes.
So you were close with the 90, taking into account that, right? So thank you for $300. Great. All right. So that would lead us to an adjournment. And just before we motion to do that, a reminder that the ANC3C is in recess for the month of August, unless there's some sort of emergency meeting. I am hoping we all enjoy a bit of a little summer break here from this work. And I again thank my colleagues and everyone that's on our committees and in the community that helps with the massive amount of resolutions we produced this month. Just awesome work and just awesome involvement, and again, sincere gratitude and appreciation for your efforts. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Have a good summer, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you so much.